So just a few strategic questions. Firstly, methodology. What is our integration strategy and approach? How are we going to put them together? How do we find our end state and how do we get there? Planning. What's our governance structure? Have we got an integration steering group? Have we got an integration leader, manager reporting in? What tools are we going to use? Have we got checklists? How are we going to communicate upwards and downwards? And how are we going to communicate to our people within the integration teams? So a few questions around methodology. Leaders, obviously we need to put the team in place. So we've got integration director, we've got support and knowledge, we've got an integration management office, we've got key roles and responsibilities within the integration as well as the organization, and then we've got extended team. So whilst we've got, let's say, an HR lead on the integration, we might then need HR people in each division or country. Have we trained them? Have we prepared them? And then knowledge. So what have we learned from previous deals, previous integrations, and what knowledge have we got in the target that we might need to move over to the acquirer or vice versa, or we do something new, so we need to learn something new across both of the organizations. Obviously, how are we going to retain the knowledge if people decide to leave of their own accord, or if we decide to exit people? So a whole slew of things around knowledge management, as well as if we change a computer system or bring something in, then we need to think about training and getting people up to speed, as well as the knowledge in the systems and the knowledge in people's brains that needs to be transferred and moved around the company. So I'd like to talk about the process across the deal. We've got the synergies that are created and estimated pre-deal, thinking about those for a discounted cash flow to get us to a valuation so we can negotiate and buy the company. Those synergies may need to be split up and given to various different managers so that they can then divvy them up themselves and give them to lower level managers in the company. We might need to incentivize to deliver them, and we need to think about how that is all done pre-deal if we don't involve the management. So quite regularly we're sitting at the center and we can't involve the management in all of the deal thinking, because otherwise we'll disrupt the business, or also it's confidential. And so there's a bit of process that needs to be put in place to make that work well and correctly, and lots of companies have problems with that. I was actually having discussions relatively recently with a company that does billion-dollar deals, and they just need a little bit of help in understanding how that works. So that's how it works. We obviously need to think about tools and processes to establish collaboration, firstly within the integration, and secondly within and across teams in the companies and across the companies. So teamwork, potentially part of HR, thinking about the change curve, and I've done a video on pulling teams together. Then we might think about standardization across project management, program management, integration in the work streams or the work streams themselves, and obviously across the whole integration. So we want to potentially standardize to make it easier and simpler to roll out an integration, and we might talk about playbooks, roles and responsibilities around what people are going to do. If there's an IT HR system, then is that for IT to plan and deliver, or for HR to plan and deliver? Obviously it's a bit of both. We need to make sure there's no gaps where things fall through and no conflicts between the two, especially if we're using different consultancies to deliver IT and HR as work streams. And then we've obviously got best practice around how standardization is done within the actual integration of the companies, and thinking about process re-engineering, target operating models and outsourcing, all that sort of good stuff. So communications is quite a difficult one. Most people mess this up. I think there's, let's talk about two main buckets of work. Firstly, we've got the normal communications that will happen on every deal. So we know that there's going to be day one, we know there's going to be things to say, why are we buying the company? And secondly, we've got the plan around the integration, the actual things we're going to do, and then the communications that go around those particular things, which may be similar in some deals or different in other deals. So I think the first bucket is easier because it's standardized and happens all the time, but people really could improve on that. And the second bucket of work is quite difficult. So let's just dive into that. I've done a video on stakeholder analysis, and that's relatively simple idea. We just need to think about all the different stakeholders, what their concerns and thoughts are around the deal and any part of the integration. Obviously, we need to explain why we're buying the company, the deal value, why it's good for the people we're buying, good for us, good for investors. Thinking then about how we engage those different types of stakeholders, making sure we've got one script that we're working off, we've got one idea, one story we're telling around the deal, essentially one way of moving forward, and then we tailor that for different stakeholders, explaining the same idea but explaining it to them so that they understand and it's useful for them. And then obviously thinking about how we retain some of the stakeholders. So there's employees, there's customers, and part of communications thinking and planning is to ensure that we engage our people and we keep all of our people, whether they be customers bringing revenue to us or employees who are building the company, working in the company, and part of that revenue and profit that we have. Hi, I'm Danny Davis. I help plan the European side of a $6 billion deal with 30 countries and 30 work streams. I wrote the book M&A Integration, How to Do It, and I've been a guest speaker at London Business School for over 20 years. I do coaching, training and consulting. Give me a call or send me an email.